Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for a fast chat hosted by wardsauto.com. I'm Adam Ragazzino. I'm the principal analyst of batteries and electric powertrains at Wards Intelligence. I'm joined today by Matt Ghirlando, Vice President of Strategy and Business Development at American Axle and Manufacturing. Matt, thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about supplier challenges to address in the chase to electrification. Let's get started. Matt, the automotive industry is transitioning to electrification, and it's having a lot of impact on the supplier industry. How is AAM adapting?
So it's a really interesting time in the supply base with this transition to electrification. There are a lot of changes that are underway. Our OEM customers are also going through a lot of significant changes. We've found that in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a big impact onto the kind of products that we design, the way that those products have to perform in the market, the expectations of the OEM customer, and as well the market in general and how the market is responding to those new products. So it's a very, very interesting time for us, and some challenges ahead. But like I said before, very, very excited time, and we feel that we're well positioned to meet it.
That's great. AAM is really well known for supporting ICE driveline needs, especially in the very demanding light and heavy duty truck categories. How are you applying your expertise to electrification?
Yes, really good question. I would give you 2 different answers. So the broad answer would be, in the powertrain space, the transmission of power from whatever makes it in the car, whether it's a combustion engine or it's an electric motor, to the wheels. That is what AAM has done for a long time. That is what we will continue to do. A lot of the challenges along the way, a lot of the subsystems, components that we make and manufacture, they're a little bit different, but they remain largely unperturbed. And so I'd say broadly, we're applying the skills that we've got to the challenges of the new product types. But the second answer that I would give in that, you really touched on it. We're really known, especially in the truck space. This is our core area. This is our expertise. This is our passion. This is where we have all of our key manufacturing processes. And here I would say, we're positioned maybe a little bit differently from the others. We believe strongly that the truck axles that we make today are going to look substantially similar in the future in an electrified age. So the source of the power will change. The fact that we have power electronics on our products will change. But the fundamental architecture of a truck that does work, which would have a frame, would also have a beam axle. And that axle and the components that build that axle are really in our wheelhouse. So we feel that we're very, very well positioned with the processes and the knowledge that we've got today.
Got it. And I just want to build on what you said there. It's no secret EV components have unique design and manufacturing challenges, from their weight to strength, as well as the shipping and handling. How is AAM adapting to these new demands, and how are they adapting their processes for the growing sales of EVs?
Yeah, so that is an excellent question, because that's an area where we spend a lot of time today. I would say that you hear a lot about the needs that electric cars, they should be, of course, they should be affordable, but they should have a good range. And especially they should be quiet. A lot of people talk about that. The absence of the noise, the combustion engine, means you can really hear everything else in the powertrain. So we, for certain, have spent a lot of effort and a lot of money and a lot of time developing new systems, gears that are quieter, ways to make those gears that are quieter, but at the same time, very, very strong and durable to be able to stand up to the higher loads that you have in an electric car. That ability to generate instant torque when you're at every stoplight is great for the consumer, but it also means a lot more load in the gears that we make and the bearings that go into our units. So there's a lot of effort there. I would also say, there are a few different, I will call them topologies or just basic designs of powertrains that are on the market, and more are coming now. It's an exciting time in that way, that there are a lot of OEMs. They're doing a lot of things differently. We're a supplier in a special hybrid axle, a 2-speed hybrid rear axle, which has really incredible performance, especially like acceleration performance. But at the same time, it has a lot of unique needs. It's an axle that has to deal with over 800 horsepower in one mode, but in a different mode has to perform as a quiet EV. That drives a lot of different requirements. It drives us to make gears maybe more precise than we've ever had to make before. It drives us to make parts that can be very quiet on one hand, but withstand loads that really look more like truckloads than they look like carloads. So it's I'd say an interesting time, a challenging time, but at the same time, it's a time where new products and new solutions are coming out that I think are very exciting in the marketplace.
Agreed. And you mentioned new parts and unique parts. Does the lack of standardization with these EV parts and their usage, does that impact the way AAM is developing their products? And is this leading to higher costs?
Yeah, it's a really hot topic, especially in our space, in that tier one supply space right now. So the answer is yes. Everybody in our segment, everybody in our position is saying, look, there are these new designs that we need, new processes, new costs in production that we need to make to get that stuff to production. Those costs are a lot higher than they've been traditionally. And of course, we're a business and we need to be able to get returns on these investments that we make. So we're clearly motivated to design a thing one time. It's a building block, or maybe it's a set of software, maybe it's a whole product. We want to be able to design that and then use it multiple times. There's a kind of I'd say, conflict with what's going on in the OEM space. You got to understand that the market is undergoing a big disruption right now. There's new entrants in the North American market. There are new entrants, homegrown to the market. There are other OEMs entering from different markets. Competition is fierce. At the same time, there's a lot of question about, to what extent will these vehicles, different types, different powertrains be sold. And what that's leading to is an extreme pressure for the OEMs to differentiate themselves. And you can understand it. You don't want to make the same thing the other OEM is making. You want to have something better. You want to have something different that people will respond to. And that is the opposite of standardization. So there's this kind of fine line where I would say there are some things which we see OEMs doing, which we understand are connected to the way they're trying to differentiate their brand, be able to accelerate a little bit better. But there are a lot of other things that just kind of flow downhill to us as requirements, where we would say we're causing a lot of work, and extra work causes extra cost. An example of that would be, two large trucks, the kind of trucks that could carry several tons on a trailer. If one of them would have 40 volts higher battery voltage than the other, you might end up making two completely different motor designs. And that doesn't really mean a lot to the end user, especially if the charging voltage is the same. But for the person making the axle, that means you have to design a different motor, you have to tool a different motor, you have to test a different motor. That drives a lot of cost. That cost impacts us. And at the same time, it impacts the OEMs, because eventually somebody has to pay for that. And, certainly that money will eventually, or that cost will eventually flow to the end consumer. I believe that there's a lot of opportunity there. I think at the same time, we're really in this space where the OEMs are trying to figure out what's meaningful to the consumer and what's not. And there's a healthy debate, therefore, going on that, is going to come to the decision, do we need to do things differently? What can we accept? What becomes like the door into the future where we say we don't care, versus what are the things that really are going to be meaningful to the customer, where extra money should be spent to make a more, let's say, more attractive product or a more meaningful experience.
Right. And as we move towards electrification and these higher expenses for OEMs and suppliers, investors must be increasingly anxious to see returns. Do you expect that there will be additional scrutiny placed on AAM and on your business?
I would say everyone in the automotive segment is getting extra scrutiny right now, and has been for a couple of years. Certainly we read a lot of what the analysts say. We talk to a lot of our competitors and other people in the segment, and we all are in this place where we're dealing with that disruption that I mentioned a minute ago. We're dealing with the uncertainty of what parts of the market globally are going to electrify more quickly. Where do we think that kind of combustion tail is going to run a little bit longer? We're uncertain about which of the OEMs in the end are going to be the winners, and which ones, might end up consolidating with others. I read a very, very interesting report in the last day or two about some of the emerging winners, especially in Asia. It's a changing market, and the investors, same as all of the, the companies in the business, are looking closely at who is making the right decisions to be successful in those segments. Who's partnering up with the OEMs who are winning? And of course, ultimately, who is making money? Because certainly these are broadly public companies that need to show a return. So it's a very, very interesting time. This leads to a lot of, I'd say, tough talk, tough discussions within our company, and I'm sure around the boardrooms around this town. And from our standpoint, we're being very, very selective with the investments that we're making. We know where we are very competitive. We know where our core products and core processes help to put us ahead of the broad range of competition that's out there. And we also believe we have a good idea of what are the markets, what are the OEMs, what are the segments where we think that electrification is really going to take off. And we're focused there, and we think that we're positioned to do well.
That's great to hear. Matt, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time today. And I hope our audience enjoyed the discussion as well with AAM and about the supplier challenges as we move towards electrification. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, thanks for having me.